Welcome to Unleashed with Kimberly. I am super excited to be here today. We are live, and you never know what's going to happen. This is a conversation for intelligence and insight, and I am so excited to introduce with me today is Abby Sweeney. Hi! So, Abby, you have an incredible story, and your whole life has been an amazing journey. Share with us what it is you do right now, and then we'll kind of jump into your story.
So what I'm doing right now is I am a life coach and motivational speaker, and I've spoken on a few international platforms as well as a lot of local platforms in my city of Tucson, Arizona. It's 112 degrees, but we're still trying to make change over here. And I help people who are recovering from domestic violence, PTSD, anxieties, depression, and move them into the present and push them in a forward progressive motion and help them achieve a transformation in their life.
That's awesome. I love what you do. And I do know a bit about your story. And you not only help women within domestic violence, but you also help men.
I do. So men who have either been through domestic violence themselves and are a little too off-put to talk about it on a grander scale, and they just want to kind of move forward. And I help men who have previously been abusers as well, help them identify what brought them to that point and how to prevent them from continuing the abuse.
That's really interesting. I know for me and a lot of organizations that I'm with, we tend to always focus on the women, and that's because the bulk and majority percentage-wise is women and then children. And so oftentimes we don't think about the men. And so I think that's a really important piece about what you do, is that you're helping the collective to heal, to move forward, and then the men to also learn not to abuse if that's the side they're on.
Because if we can help the victims, which is always important, helping victim survivors and turning them into thrivers is always important. But helping the root cause of the fact that, like, if abuser goes to jail and is in jail and comes out of jail and didn't learn anything, then they're just going to repeat it because to them it's not a concern. It's not a problem.
Right. Wow. So let's kind of give everybody a history of why you've moved into this realm of helping and healing people on the domestic violence side. So share with us a little bit about your story, if you don't mind.
Yeah, not at all. So I grew up in a military household. I bounced around all the time. So when we settled in Tucson, I thought, this is it. This is where I'm going to stay. And that was true. I haven't left. But about, 6 years ago, I met someone and thought, this is it. I'm going to get married to this person. This is the person I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. And after about 3 months of living together, he lost his job, and that's when the abuse started. It turned into emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and financial abuse. So, he would tell me I wasn't good enough every day, to the point where I actually started to tell myself I wasn't good enough. And then he would correct me on how I was deprecating myself. He was very physically abusive, but not in the way that you would really think. So I didn't have bruises. I didn't go to the hospital. It was pushing, it was pulling, it was convincing me to eat less. It was convincing me to eat more. It was really trying to physically control me. And then there was a long time where there was drugging and sexual assault involved with people that I found out that I knew, and people who I don't even still to this day know their names. I went through 2 separate miscarriages during this time. I honestly, to this day, don't know who, created it, but I went through 2 separate miscarriages, and then I found myself in $50,000 worth of credit card debt that I had to recover from. So at the end of 2.5 years, I was literally living out of my fiat, working at a local brewery, just trying to muster enough, thinking it's okay, something else will happen. I'll get back on my feet. And what ended up happening was my parents found me, took me back home, And I ended up living with them and healing and growing with them for 2.5 years until about 3 weekends ago when I moved out onto my own again for the first time again as a new person, and am able to physically represent my recovery now.
That's incredible. When I think about you, I think of, and I actually titled this episode of Trauma to Triumph. And you've really gone through all these different levels of trauma. Mm-hmm. And now you're walking in this healing, and, you know, you're just living the best that you can at this point. And I just think that's really amazing.
I remember this really beautiful story. I think it's beautiful. So my father's a Marine, and obviously Marines don't do well when their daughters get hurt or threatened. And so there was a time when my father called me at like 3 o'clock in the morning, because both of us are up because we're both on the same PTSD schedule. And he said, Abby, I need you to talk me off the ledge. I'm outside your old house. You know, your ex is here. And I just want to beat the living daylights out of him. And I had told my dad, I had said, just wait. Don't do that, because I need my dad. I don't need you somewhere else. I need you here. Just wait, because magical things are going to happen. And this was like a month out of it. And now 2.5 years out of it, I'm speaking internationally. I'm growing. I'm helping people. I'm making more money than I ever thought I could ever make, and have been able to fight that credit card debt to where I don't have credit card debt anymore.
That's amazing.
My credit score went from 340 to almost 700 now. Like, I was able to actually show my father, yes, that's not the answer. Don't do that. I need you here. Just wait, because there's so many magical things that are going to happen.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. I love that you were able to do that for your dad. And now he can sit back and go, yes, look at you.
Well, now he can sit back and relax. Before it was like touch and go. Like, we were all walking on eggshells, kind of all living together again. Nobody knew what was going to set me off. You know, nobody knew what was going to set my father off. And my mother was just trying to like cook for both of us and make sure everything was okay. And now, like, the relationship I have with my parents is 3 times better. It took so much just to live with them as like an adult.
Right.
And to see my brother, who's only 18 months more than me, or older than me, you know, married and has kids and is happy. And I'm over here like, okay, when's my time? And I didn't even realize that that was my time.
Right.
That was 100% my time to create the person that I am now. It's just amazing. I would never have imagined that.
You just reminded me, you said something on the Goddess Summit, as if anybody doesn't know, that you were one of the goddesses that was highlighted in the Unleash Your Inner Goddess series that I had. And you had said to me in that, that you have no guilt, and you would never change your life if given the opportunity, that you were so happy and secure in who you are today because of what you went through. Can you talk a little bit more to that? Because that's so powerful.
So one of the stories I really like to tell people is the last time I saw the abuser was, maybe 1.5 years ago, I think, was the last time I saw him. We had a mutual friend who got his master's in dance. And so we both went to the space, and he had started to talk to me, you know, just trying to start stuff. And so I ended up, you know, letting him get it out. I smiled at him. And then I just looked at him and I just said, thank you. Thank you for showing me who I don't want to be with. Thank you for being a part of my growth, because I am so much happier than I was when I was with you. And thank you for showing me that I'm worth more. And he just didn't really know how to take it. And I think that was really big, because I wasn't thanking him in the instance of, you know, reinforcing negative behavior.
Right.
It was, thank you, because if I'm going to blame you for all of the negative things that happened, then I'm going to blame you for all the good things that kind of happened out of it too. I'm going to blame respectfully and eloquently. So as I look back on my life, it's so funny you bring up that question, because I was so torn between two answers to that question. And I went with, I wouldn't change anything about my life because I don't have guilt or anything. But one of the things that I started realizing in these last couple of weeks is that I was using the terms my abuser. I was still taking responsibility for some of the things that had happened. And I changed my language now to say the abuser. And if you don't know who the abuser is, I'll tell you the stories. But I no longer want to take responsibility for that. So, I went through those things, and I wouldn't change it because honestly, I just hired a marketing team for my Instagram account, and they had asked me, what were your goals when you were in a relationship with him? And I said, to be with him. And that was it. There were no career goals. There was no progress. There was no hope of a better life. I didn't even finish college because I was so focused on just him. And that sounds very bleak to me now. Because when you look at me now, I play pool professionally. I do yoga 5 times a week. I want to involve my business. I have a day job I'm dedicated to. I want to improve my relationships with my friends. I have so many visions and goals I want to meet. It's not circled around one person. I can have one person come in and enhance that, but it's not focused around one person. But I needed to live that in order to see where I could go now. So I think the other answer to that question that I had, which kind of ties into all of that, is I really would like to tell myself now, don't grow up so quickly. Like, I'm 25 and I've lived through more than what most people have lived through in a general lifetime. And it was solely because I kind of put myself there. I wanted to drive at 15. I wanted to get a job at 16. I wanted to start a business then. I wanted to get married at 21. Like, I wanted all of these things super early. And now I'm 25 and I have all this life experience and I'm so grateful for it. But if I had to go back and tell my younger self one thing, it would be, like, in addition to breathe, get through it because you're going to go through a lot, is stop trying to grow up so fast.
Yeah.
Enjoy the time that you have, because now I enjoy my time more than anything else.
That's an interesting point you bring up, because I was exactly the same way. I was divorced with 2 kids at 23, getting out of a domestic violence relationship. So I completely understand. I used to joke that I've had a life experience as a 50-year-old, and now you kind of look back and go, wow, I really went through a lot, and I did try to grow up so fast. And that's such an important thing to point out. Slow down. It's coming. You're always going to age. You're going to grow up. You're going to slow down and enjoy that moment.
Take time for yourself, like, be with you. Because nobody else is going to be with you but you.
Right.
You'll have relationships, you'll have friends, you'll have family, but nobody is going to consistently sit with you other than yourself.
Right. So true. So what was it, do you think, that really helped you get to this point that you are at?
Oh gosh. Time. And really, like, it's strange, but like isolating myself, honestly. Not isolating myself to the point where, like, I had no friends, but I really needed to focus on myself. And it kind of reminds me of something that just happened, actually, I was talking to my best friend who lives in LA. And, I was talking to him about some of the frustrations I was having in my life currently, and, how I was kind of being a little petty, but I was really trying to just focus on growth. And he had said, Abby, and he kind of like paused. He just like took a page out of the motivational speaker book and just like paused. And he said, you really focus on your growth. But how often do you focus on healing? And we had talked for so long, because he's the type of friend where I could talk to him for like 4 hours. And so a bottle of wine later, I go out and I'm like, I put my head to my journal and I'm like, okay, healing. And I wrote it on the top. How am I going to get this done? And I'm journaling, and I'm really just like not getting anywhere. I'm still so focused on that growth that I was like, fine, I'm just going to go play pool, have another beer. And I came back here at about, I don't know, midnight or so. And I lay down in my bed and I take a deep breath, and immediately my heart gets a little heavy. My eyes well up, and I find myself just like sobbing. And I'm like, for no reason. I'm like, what am I pregnant? Like, am I about to start my period? Like, am I hormonally changing? What's happening? And then I started to just like speak about my frustrations and speak about the things just with a surrounding of no judgment and a surrounding of no conditioned social ideas to tell me what to feel, or, worried I'm going to tell somebody something that could be embarrassing. I can just be vulnerable with myself. And that's what I was missing. So when I was going through all of those things before, what I wasn't realizing is that I was naturally putting myself in isolated, vulnerable areas of myself. So, I would sit with myself in front of my sacred space because I lived with my parents. I had no place by myself where I could just talk and nobody would listen. Somebody's always listening if somebody lives in the house with you. So I set up this sacred space, and I would put a pillow to my mouth and I would just speak into the pillow. And it's been so long since I had to do that when I came to this house, it just came so naturally when I had to face something that was frustrating. I literally put myself in a position where nothing is being recorded, nothing is being written down, nothing is memoired out. It's just me and my ceiling. And I can just speak my truth. And that's really when I came to the conclusion I was still absorbing responsibility for some of the abuse that was happening, because I kept saying my abuser. Like, that was a recent thing that came too. And it was because I put myself in a position where like my grow meter is up here. It's ready. It's there. It's always full because I'm a very tenacious person. Didn't get the job, go on LinkedIn and apply for 10 more. You can do it. You'll find the right one. But that's not going to help you heal. So my heal bar was kind of going like this. So now my heal bar is coming up to here. I take time where I talk to myself. And back then it was, my heal bar was more up here. My growth bar was kind of being stunted. So now I'm realizing it's a time of finding balance between the two, that I need to take time to heal, and that I'm going to allow myself as much time as I need, be it 5 minutes to realize something and then my growth spurts, or take weeks or 2 years to overcome something. But I don't place a time frame on myself to say I'm going to do this for this amount of time. I allow myself the freedom to be in a non-judgment and non-conditioned zone for as long as I need. And if that means taking time off work, then I'm just going to come back to work and be twice as productive the next day, because I've given myself that room to balance out those bars.
Wow. I think it goes to balance in everything. And that's such an important thing that you just said about your growth meter was here, but the healing was down here, and it's this balancing act.
Yeah.
But if you can find the ways to kind of do it together on all levels, whether you're needing to meditate, do yoga, exercise, journal, have friends, go out, date, do all these different things, it's important to have that balance.
Mm-hmm. So I like that. I think it was a few weeks ago, I was doing some self-development on myself, and I realized that I'm a control person. I love control, because to me, control means safe. And if I'm safe, I can't get hurt. So if I try to control something and I control it, then there's no pain. That's the mathematical equation in my head. Obviously, that's not correct. And in fact, one of the things I was realizing is that there's many parts of my life that I need to relinquish the responsibility of control to. Yield the sword, surrender it. I'm religious, so for me, that's surrendering it to God. But, for other people, it's surrendering it just to the universe and saying, okay, this is going to happen the way that it's going to happen. And one of the cards I drew talked about the fact that the universe is going to balance itself without our consent. And that was huge for me. Oh, that was the huge mind blow, because I'm a control person. I want to control it. But when control is such a fallacy, if you try to control something, the universe is going to balance it out anyway. So you could be beating your head up against a brick wall, hoping for something to change and trying to force it to change, but it's probably not going to, because it's not meant to. So one of the things I realized between that healing and that, growing, was that I was really trying to force my healing the other night. I was really trying to control it and say, I'm going to make this happen. But you can't do that. Universe is going to balance without my consent. And that just happened to be when I got home, and it was the perfect time, because I had it was midnight. I had 8 hours before I had to be at work. And if I didn't sleep that night and healed instead and had to take the next day off, that was that. And that is what ended up happening. But, I had to take that time. And it was forced upon me without my consent. And it was the most perfect time. So understanding, I think with that too, is the control is a huge part of it. I've been trying to control my life, and growth is easy to control. The more you put in, the more you get out. Healing is something that needs to happen when you place yourself in the space to create it.
Right.
So attaining balance sometimes comes with just relinquishing the control that you want and finding the things that you need.
Yeah. Allowing yourself to be vulnerable to that healing too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And if you end up crying, even if you end up crying for 3 days in a row, I know socially we put that means you're depressed. My question is, well, one, what does it matter to you? But also two, so what if I'm depressed? I'm processing through it. Allow me the space to process through it. Allow me to heal in my way. And if you can't do that, then give me the space and don't talk to me, because this is something I need to do for me. And if you want to be a roadblock in that transformation, then that's the role you're putting yourself in by saying that to me.
Yeah. It's really an interesting perception when you realize that that's what you need to be able to do and allow yourself to do and give yourself permission. And it's okay if you need to have we call them pity parties. If you need to have a pity party and cry for 3 days, great. Go ahead, because at day number 4, you're going to be completely in a different space.
Oh yeah.
Clearer head, more productive, happier.
When we limit ourselves to what we think we should do, that is when we stunt our growth and healing.
Yeah.
So I talk a lot about social conditionings, especially as women, but also as men. So women, we're social conditioned that a size 2 is beautiful. We're conditioned that we need a man to be valuable. We're conditioned that we're not supposed to make as much as men. These are conditionings that we place on ourselves or that are placed on us. I was conditioned from a long time that I shouldn't have sex before marriage. Obviously that's not the case, but that what that did was it changed the way that I thought about it. And it changed the way that I had to almost rebel against that to find peace and serenity in it. And almost sacrament in it. And then, with men, there's a huge social conditioning that men have to make more money than women. They have to be the caretaker. They have to be strong. They can't be vulnerable. They can't cry. They can't express their pain. And that's wrong too. We're all human. We all have hormones. We all have endorphins. We all have proteins. We all have all of that. So coming together and breaking those social conditionings, this is why I like working with men, because to hear a woman tell them it's okay not to be the breadwinner. It's okay with me. It's okay for all of that. Those are things they've probably never heard in their life. So to encourage that way of thinking for men and then process it over to women to say, you don't have to You don't have to have a man. It's okay. I still get drawn to it. You know, I'm single now. Like I still get drawn to, I have to be with a man right now. But I don't. You know,
Right.
I surrender myself to let it happen naturally. And sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. But either way, it never gets in the way of my happiness.
Right. Right. And that's so important. And you brought up such a valid point for both women and men. Like these, and in these conversations, I seem to have a lot of this topic of the cultural, what's the word I'm looking for? The cultural responsibilities and expectations. That's the word. Expectations of what is, what you should do. You should, be married at 25. You should start having children at 25. You should do this at this and that and that. And then men, you have to take care of the woman. You should have a better job so you can always be the, bring the breadwinner and blah, blah, blah. It's constant and it's in every single culture on some level. And to start really breaking those down and letting people know, hey, you can change that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you brought up a very good point there. So, you have to get married and have children by 25. That having children is a huge one. So, like, I cannot have children. That's been something that I've known for quite a while. And I was in a church group once at a Bible study, and I was telling people, like, I don't have to worry. If I want to have kids, I can adopt kids because it's not like I'm having kids of my own anyway. I would prefer to have a partner in that. However, if it comes to a point in my life where that's just not what it is and I want to have kids, I could go and I don't want to say go and get children, but I can go and adopt children. Like I don't have to naturally have them myself. And
Right.
She said, oh, but miracles happen. And I said, no, like I've already put it into my mind. Like now I don't want to have my own children. And she's like, well, you'll change your mind later. And I started to get upset and because when I was 13 and told that the likelihood of me having children was very low and then 2 miscarriages, the last thing I want is for someone to tell me something they don't understand. And what she didn't understand was the shame I had felt for so long, not being able to have what some people would call naturally born children. Wow. That was a huge shame point for me. I couldn't even do the basic requirements of a woman at that time. And so at this moment, I'm out of domestic violence. I've done a little bit of recovery. I'm a little more understanding of these things. I can see where she's coming from. So I just said, here, let's take ourselves out of this. So I pulled her aside away from the group because I'm not going to embarrass her in front of everybody. And I said, I don't think you understand the damage you just did. And I want you to see the damage you just did. I can't have children. And I know that a lot of people think that, miracles happen, and I believe miracles happen, but I've kind of come to the terms with the fact I don't want to have my own children, and you didn't respect that. Mm-hmm. You kind of disrespected me by saying, oh, well, you'll change your mind. Some people just don't want that. Not to say I don't want children, but I don't have to have naturally born children to be happy. I also don't have to have children to be happy. So why are you trying to dictate my happiness for me?
Yeah.
And that was a huge breakthrough for her because she didn't even understand. She had been so conditioned that she lived such conditioning, and she hadn't been seen with a roadblock to get in the way of that. And we turned it into a learning moment where I said, I'm not upset. I felt a little angry at first, but I'm not upset now. I see now it wasn't intentional. But I encourage you, if somebody says, I don't want to have my own children, respect their decision, because that is loving them.
Yeah.
And that is what we're supposed to do, is love other people.
What a valuable lesson for both of you in that moment, though, to recognize your true, raw, authentic self in that situation, and then allowing yourself to be open enough to share with this other person, your reality, and helping her to understand and see a broader picture. We can't walk down with these blinders on that your world is going to be right for somebody else's, or should be, or is.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes they're almost like microaggressions we don't understand, or it's like subconscious, where it's like, That's their way of showing you support because they think you want what they want.
Right.
And that's where we stop listening. And listening is a huge part. We were playing loaded questions at a housewarming party this last weekend, and we were playing loaded questions. And one of the questions was, what is the meaning of life? And they're not usually that deep, I'll be honest. They're not usually that deep. But they are when I answered, I said, simply listening. That is, in my opinion, the meaning of life. And that's coming from somebody who talks for a living. Like, when I coach, I don't tell them what to do. I give them tools, we brainstorm, but my coaching is asking you questions.
Right. Yeah.
What do you want to work on today? And now that you've worked on that, what do you see as moving forward? What are your action plans to accomplish that?
Right.
What is something you can commit to? Who's going to hold you accountable to that other than me? Because we only talk once a week. Who's going to hold you accountable? I had a client say, my dog's going to hold me accountable. I was like, if you go and celebrate with your dog that you accomplished your goal, God bless. That is amazing.
Yeah.
So that's like, truly listening is a huge part of it. Like, I would not be able to ask the questions if I didn't listen.
Amen to that. I love that, because when you're coaching, and I do the same thing, it's about really understanding and hearing what the other person's saying. And even in every single conversation you have with your children, I don't care if they're 3 years old, you're trying to understand what it is that they're saying. And sometimes they're not even saying what they truly mean. So it's really about stepping back and listening. And oftentimes what people do is they already start formulating in their mind what it is they want to say before you're done even saying what you're talking about. And so you're not really fully hearing what's being said to you. It's really interesting.
You know what seems amazing too is throughout this week, I've been posting longer posts on Facebook. So I showed you my new tattoo, and it came with a story about my grandmother. So, the first part, and it's still marketing, if anything else, for a coaching business. But, the first part was talking about some of the things that I was feeling about it. Was my grandmother has Alzheimer's. I have to come to terms with the fact she's never going to remember my wedding. She's not going to remember my children. She's not going to remember my future husband / any boyfriend. In fact, the last boyfriend I introduced her to, she called by the abuser's name, because that's who she remembers. And that's what I have to understand. And then I go deeper into the post where I say, I realize that worrying about those things doesn't really matter. It's about the everyday moments and spending time with her and the emotional stories. People read the first paragraph and came down and commented. And one person said, no, you can't think like that. It's every single moment that you're with her that's going to be the brightest moments. And I was just like, did you read the whole post before you commented? ? No, sorry. Thank you. And then it happened again yesterday when I posted something about someone I had barely spoken to came to me and said, you're not the person I remember you to be. You're still troubled. And I said, okay, haven't talked to you in a year and a half, but sure, I'll allow you to think that way. And then they basically gaslit me. They were asking me for something. I said no. And then they accused me of trying to steal him from his wife. Totally gaslit. If you want a perfect example, that's a perfect example of gaslighting. And so I said, I'm going to block you, dude, because I can't handle this. And he's like, you're not the person I remember you to be. So I posted that, and then I said, it's not about, has this ever asked this of you? Move past it. Sometimes these people aren't meant to be in your life. Moving into a positive, more transformative state. Next thing you know, at the bottom, they say, no, it's not about that. It's about overcoming and letting those people go. So it's definitely something that has been cyclical in my life currently, is people are not fully engaging in a conversation or fully engaging in something that they think their voice needs to be louder.
Right.
And in your mind, that positive voice should always be louder than your negative voice. Always.
Absolutely.
But in person, I learned a very valuable skill that sometimes it's best not to say anything, even if you think you have something to say. Because that's a time for you to listen and comprehend and learn, and your time will come. Be patient, allow it to come. Again, that control.
That's what I call wisdom.
Hashtag wisdom.
That is so important. You know, people don't take the time to read. They don't take the time to fully listen to the conversation. It makes me think of my son, my first son. He's 25 now. When he was 2 years old and talking, he would literally repeat himself over and over and over and over again until I repeated exactly what he was saying. That way he knew I knew what he was talking about. And, you know, if a 2-year-old is doing that, and he, you know, it makes you really step back and go, okay, this child really wants me to understand what he wants or what he wants, needs, whatever it might be. But that doesn't change in life. We're telling people what we want, need, and so forth. And we have this expectation that they're hearing us, they're listening, and often they don't. And not to say that that's everybody, but it happens often.
Oh, and I would say a big contributor to that is not understanding the difference between wants, needs, and values.
Oh, yeah.
I may want a better paying job, but I need to make enough money to pay for rent. I may want to go out and eat ramen, but I need to cook at home. I need to have food in my fridge. I value love. I don't need nor want it. I value it. Right. I value my boundaries. And in that instance, I want you to accept my boundaries, but I need you to respect them.
Right.
That is also, we don't know how to ask for things because we don't understand whether we need it or want it. So the best example is like, there's an episode of The Office where Dwight brings in bagels and he goes up to Pam and he says, "Here, Pam, have a bagel." And she goes, "Oh, no, I'm good." He goes, "Oh, that's right. You're a woman. You can't accept food on the first offering. Please, Pam, have a bagel." But that's so true. A lot of women do that. They'll say, "Oh, no, I'm good." Even if they're hungry, even if they're thirsty, they still won't ask for the things they need because they confuse it with the things they think they want.
Yeah.
And it can go damaging and it can go a little selfishly. You know, I want you to comply with something I agree with. It's not something I need, but they'll say, "I need you to comply with this."
Right.
They don't know how to ask appropriately versus the people that say, "I want good drinking water." No, girl, you need good drinking water. You need food in your fridge. You need money in your bank account. Those are things that you need just to make yourself live, just to live life. Right. But you can want a better boss. You can want a better job. You can want a promotion. You can want ramen noodles made from a place and get it, you know, Uber eat it in. But you need food in your fridge to consume it. You know, it's understanding those differences. And once you know, what do I need versus what do I want versus what do I value, then you can actually ask and communicate for things appropriately.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
I value being heard, and I feel like you're not allowing me to be heard. You're still requesting for something, but it's something that you value.
Yeah. It goes into relationships too, and I think there's a huge disconnect when it comes to communication and having fulfilling, long-lasting relationships. So I love that you're totally talking about this. And it's in every relationship, let alone an intimate relationship.
I was just about to say, every single relationship. I had to have the discussion with my mother that the way that she held in her grief, or like she held grudges. She used to be a grudge holder. But the way that she held in her
I love
grudges,
how you said it. A grudge holder.
just a grudge holder, the way that she holds on to her grudges, like it was the same way my ex did.
Mm.
So it was the same way every ex I've ever had did. And the way that she spoke to me, in that, like, I was always worried the house was never clean enough, because she would always make a comment every time she came home. Or I was worried that, you know, if we got into an argument because I disagreed with something she did, that she would bring something up from 3 years ago that I thought was already buried with the hatchet. I was so worried about that, but that's exactly what the abuser I experienced did. He did those things. So I had to sit down with my mother after coming back home and saying, you taught me that that's what love was, because I love you. I need our communication to change because I value our love. Can we create some problem-solving skills to help with this, so that I feel more comfortable coming to you and not feeling like you're going to put me down or make me feel this big? That is hard to do, to basically tell your mother the way that she spoke to you encouraged abuse. But it was something she needed to hear.
Yeah.
Because what she realized was that after we had that conversation, her communication with my dad got better. Her communication with my brother got better. She didn't lose friends as often as she had before. She was actually growing with her friends, increasing them, and encouraging all of us to get together and actually talk about these things and actually communicate. And so when I was upset, I would pull her aside and say, Mom, I'm feeling upset because I really needed you to be here today. And not even that I needed you. And I like corrected myself, just as I corrected myself now. I wanted you to be here today. And I had the expectation in my head that you were going to be here today, be it for an event or something. And she had said, wow, I didn't even know. And I said, cool. So how can we increase this? So what can we do to change this? Because I'm not one to dwell on things. If somebody doesn't know, then that was more on me. I didn't communicate to them that it was an expectation. Mm-hmm. So how can I communicate that that was an expectation to you? If I communicate it and you still don't meet that expectation and you agreed to it, that that's an expectation you can meet, then I have a right to say, okay, I felt disrespected. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about my feelings real quick, because you knew this was happening and you still didn't accomplish it. And you agreed to. You said this was something you could do. And then once I've expressed my emotions, we can say, okay, well, maybe it wasn't something you could do. Now we've learned. You've learned. I've learned. Now let's grow. Let's adapt. Let's move forward. And we're able to meet that heal bar and meet that grow bar. And I would never have been able to do that if I hadn't upgraded my communication with my mother.
Right.
I will say, in the last intimate relationship I had, it was one of the healthiest relationships I've ever had. We communicated really well. We respected each other, and we had that open, like I told him about the abuse, which was always a hard thing for me to talk about in relationships. It's usually one of the first things I just kind of backhand him at the gate. Like, I do this for a living. This is what I do. You can either jump on board and ride the crazy train or hop off and we can be friends. And I just kind of prepare them with that and meet the objective there. But, when, we did break up, it was just, he had driven down from Phoenix to Tucson and said, I just I don't see this lasting long term. And I got a little upset and I had said, I think you're running away. I think you're scared. I was making observations based off the fact that I work in a mental health profession and can kind of see things from a different lens. And it got to a point where I said, you know what? I'm not going to change your mind. We're breaking up at this point. You don't want to be with me. And I respect you for coming and talking to me about it. And I respect you for holding to your decision and making this decision for yourself. And I would never have been able to have that kind of conversation if I hadn't have upgraded my communication. And I felt comfortable with him because of how I communicated with him.
That's amazing.
So even now, I'm still a little upset with him because he still has some of my chairs. But But, at one point I'll get all of my stuff back. But also at one point, I do plan on us at one point being friends. But not while I'm still single, because I know that he would see that vulnerability as something to take advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
He's not there yet. I'm not there yet. It's me and my best friend 5 years after we broke up to be best friends. And now he's my brother. He's my homie.
Yeah.
I definitely see this kind of moving in that direction because of the communication of it. Like, okay, maybe we weren't meant to be together. We were meant to teach each other something in this moment, but we were meant to be friends. So let's communicate as friends now. No more of that intimate communication that was in that category. Now we're going to communicate as friends. And here are the expectations of being a friend of me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be available 24 hours a day. I own a business and work a full-time job. I'm working 12 hours a day.
Right.
I don't have, but if you need to come over and use my space, you're always welcome to come over and use my space. You will not ask me for any sex ever because you've put yourself in that category. And you will never put me in a position where any of my intimate relationships after that will be threatened. And if you feel that, you walk away. Here are the expectations of being a friend with me. And I'm going to set those boundaries clear. And if you break those boundaries, you don't have very many chances.
I love that you're pointing out it's not even just expectations, it's boundaries, and it's about being a conscious person, but having conscious relationships on all levels. And that's such a great point that you're bringing up.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It was one thing that I didn't understand.
Yeah. Well, we don't.
Past relationships that I've had, and even in this one, that's always been my biggest thing. I have these boundaries and these walls. I call them walls, but it's more like a moat. It's like I'm not blocking myself away from people, but here's the boundary. Here's the borderlands. If you can swim through the alligators and the water snakes and make it there, then you've respectfully exceeded my boundaries. If you try and jump it and you jump into it and the gators get you, it's probably because you were being very disrespectful and overreaching my boundaries.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest things I've had to work on is understanding that here is the moat of my boundaries. And I set up those boundaries for safety. And that boundaries are actually safer than attempting to control is.
Oh, yeah.
So, but I was giving those boundaries into people. So like with this last relationship, he lived in Phoenix, I lived in Tucson. I lived with my parents. So it wasn't like he could come down and stay with my parents. And so, it was just a little crazier. So I ended up going up there more often. I was driving up to Phoenix twice a week just to be with him, just to show him I cared, because time is a love language of mine. Quality time and acts of service are love languages of mine. If you couldn't tell. But what I was realizing is that I didn't need to do that. He wasn't asking me. I was giving it. And I was doing it because I felt like if I didn't, he would leave me. I was allowing him to entrap on my boundaries, and I wasn't respecting my own boundaries. I wasn't doing my thankful videos. I wasn't putting out content. I was ignoring my business. I was allowing this person to take me away from that. And that's me. But into another relationship or a new relationship, whenever that may be, that is something that I continue to work on. There are some set in stone boundaries. I don't have sexual relations with someone unless I'm in a relationship with them. That's a boundary of mine. I don't have sex with multiple people at a time. That is a boundary of mine. I don't drink too much on the first date. Things like that. Like there are boundaries I set into place for myself, but I need to uphold those boundaries and express my values so that they understand why those boundaries are a boundary.
Right. Well, not only that, but keeping those boundaries in place during the relationship. And that goes back to this lesson that you learned during this most healthiest relationship you've had, is understanding what's important to you, and moving forward in the next relationship or any relationship, is that you have these set boundaries. And so many times women, we just let those go right out the door. We say we have them, and then we meet someone and they're gone. Or we hold them up for a little bit and then they're gone. And I've seen men do it too, but typically women, because we're such pleasers and givers, and we feel like we have to put ourselves on the back burner in order to yes everybody else, we lose ourselves. And I love that you're talking about this, because it's such an important point to hold on to your boundaries, your expectations, and not give in, because it's about respecting yourself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You have to set the example for how other people treat you.
Absolutely.
So if you respect yourself by standing up to your boundaries and saying, okay, there's a moat, but now I am going to put up a wall for you because you have exceeded this boundary one too many times. By doing that, a lot of people see that. I've even had men who I've dated say, oh my gosh, you're so mean. You're such an angry person. And I said, no, you're just reacting because you overstepped my boundary, and I'm holding you accountable to it. I did it nice the first time, I did it nice the second time, I'm not going to be nice the third time, because that just means you really don't respect me.
Right.
And I said, and and a lot of people think you're being so mean when you do that. I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be seen as the mean person. Do you really want to be around those people that think adhering to your boundaries is being mean?
Right.
Or do you want to be around people that are going to be in your corner and say, you know what, Abby was right. That is kind of not very nice of you to say that. No, I'm behind her. Like, don't let me get into a bar fight, but be there to support me and say, you know what you did was right, because even if what you said and how you did it was wrong, you adhered to your boundary. And that's what's important.
Yeah.
We should all be a cheerleader like that. If you don't, call me, because I'll be your cheerleader, girl.
Right. It's
for real.
And I love that. And I know so many people, even in relationships with family members, you have to set those boundaries, and you have to keep those boundaries for yourself, and have people. It's about it's respecting yourself and allowing other people to respect you, and it goes both ways. And keeping that it's so important.
And I found that when I was respecting myself, creating the space for me to heal, creating the space for me to grow, adhering to my boundaries, telling other people, hey, I've set this boundary. Okay, just so you know, this is a boundary. You break it again. Okay, you knew this was a boundary and you still broke it. Doing that and adhering to those things made me more respectful of others.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I was doing that for myself.
And you understand the importance of it.
Oh yeah. I did not. I was talking to a friend the other day who knew me during the domestic violence and into now. And we've stayed friends, but we were more like acquaintances, just seeing each other here and there. And she had said, oh my gosh, like so much nicer. You are so much nicer than you were. I said, not to be rude.
Right.
But you were kind of a bitch. And I was like, okay. So I looked back and I was like, you know what? I kind of was. But I was in survival mode.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I wasn't respecting myself. I wasn't having other people respect me. So I was being disrespectful to others, because why do I have to be the only one that's crapped on?
Right.
Now I respect myself. I respect my people. I respect my tribe.
Absolutely. I love this. Respect and boundaries. It's and communication and understanding that conversation. I love it. Where can people find you? I actually have your website, but go ahead and say it anyway.
You can find me at www.asmotivational.com. It's for my name, Abby Sweeney. You can also find me on Facebook, AS Motivational, and you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn. And Abby is spelled like the Beatles, and Sweeney is spelled with only 2 E's in the middle.
I love it. You know what? Right here. Waha!
There you go. Yeah. So I was talking with my godmother over the weekend, and I was asking her like where my name came from, because she gave me this plant that her and my mother had when they were first roommates. 30 years ago. It's my older brother Charlie's the plant. And so I was like, why did she name me Abby with just Abby and with an E, which is out of the ordinary for the States? And she was like, you know, I don't know, but I brought it up because your last name is spelled kind of weird.
I love it.
So it's just who I am.
It is. It's awesome. And for everybody watching, if you watch this on the rerun or replay on Aphrodite Enterprises Inc. on Facebook, you can type in questions and we will get back. We will read through them and Abby will definitely respond to those. I want to say this episode is brought to you by Jeff Kroom at yourlifeempowered.jeffkroom.com. And he is the one that created my beautiful intro video with my Phoenix, which I will play again. But in the meantime, everyone, thank you so much. And I hope you have a blessed and wonderful day.